Hi, travel creators. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm so happy you're here. Today, we are chatting with the very brilliant Alicia on all things content creation, batching your content, AI, branding, niching down, going slow to speed up. All of the juicy bits are coming out here. Okay, and I can't wait for you to get into it.
So I am Alicia. I have a business called With Joy Brand Co., and otherwise known as the Holistic Brand Coach. I help primarily service providers who have evolved in their business. They now have services that are like beyond the fit in a box service. They're kind of hard to articulate their value in what they do. I come in and I help them create brilliant brands with their messaging, primarily, like how they think about their content and their messaging and their brand strategy.
That's amazing. You are also a brand expert, and just every time I see your content, I'm like, oh, I just know it's going to be good. Like, I just know I'm going to click on this and it's going to be like, it's going to make me feel good. It's so fun.
I love that. I feel the same about your stuff.
Oh, please. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. You had mentioned to me that you created sales messaging or like copy and paste sales language. And I just want to know more about this. I want to know more. Tell me the deeds. How did you do it? What did you do?
I'll give you the full details. So I have a full schedule right now with clients. I'm booked out. It's beautiful. I love it. I'm so thankful. But one of my like non-negotiables is selling, at least trying to sell once a week, either on stories, in my email newsletter, not being afraid to sell. And something I was noticing, and I think other people can probably relate to this, is it would just feel like I had to have the stars align. I'd probably need to be ovulating to like, okay, I can do this and I can bring it to completion. Like I don't just start it, I actually post it and do it. And so what I do for my clients is I create a brand core for them. And the brand core has what I call like copy and paste messaging. But I was realizing with my own pain points, I need copy and paste like sales messaging, little snippets that I have in a library that I can pull from. It's like a grab bag. I can grab what feels good. I don't have to be feeling good that day in order to post it. And it's not finalized. I do need to make some edits to it, but it's been so helpful to not overthink.
That is incredible. That is so genius. It reminds me, one of my favorite authors, Austin Keelan, he talks about like a swipe file. I have one too, where if I see someone who's doing something cool or interesting or amazing, and I'm like, wow, that was cool. I've never seen that before. I'll like take a screenshot of it or grab a link and just dump it into this folder in Drive or something. And I'm like, great, now I can come back to that. But yours takes it a step further of like, I'm just creating a bank of information that I already feel good about. And then I'm just already on a schedule. So I just set it out there and it goes out and people will respond to it, which is so genius because you can just write it once when you're like feeling good. And then you're like, okay, yeah, I feel good about this. Now it just goes out. That's so amazing.
Yes, exactly. Yes, to have those swipe files. It is so powerful.
Okay, pause. This was incredible advice. Let's just wrangle that in. Alicia has sat down and written about how she helps people. In one go, she has put together a document that she feels good about sharing. So when she knows it's time to go and schedule content, she just pulls from this bank of content and she already loves it and she already approves it. And bam, it goes out and resonates with her audience. Incredible. Incredible. What made you think, okay, this is something I should do, instead of like trying to rewrite the same thing over and over again?
I was finding myself ready to go sell and okay, I'm trying to book out till July or August or whatever. And then I wouldn't complete it. Like I have 2 kids, I'm busy. So I would get halfway done. I would be like, oh, I think I could write about this or tell this story. But I wouldn't bring it across the finish line because I would get stuck. Because I know sales psychology. I know I need to spend time on this. I know it needs to check these boxes. And so I would get stuck. And so then and here, this might be really helpful for your audience. I turned to ChatGPT to help me with this because this is what I do for other business owners. Because when you're in it, it's foggy and confusing and you can't see the forest or like you can't see the trees through the forest through the trees, whatever that is. And so I turned to ChatGPT and she helped me.
That is so good. I feel the same way. I was just working on an email sequence and I was like, I can't know. I have no idea what I'm doing. I can't do this. And it's like, you literally write emails for other people all day long. What do you mean? And so, yeah, it's so easy to not be able to do it for yourself because you're like, oh my God, I just talk about this all the time. Everybody should know, right? Like, I'm so sick of saying it a million times, which is so funny. Okay, I have a question for you that I think I want to create a whole podcast episode on it, but I had a conversation recently with someone about niches. Just so I know, are you a person who's like, I think people should have one niche, or are you, how do you feel about that first? There's no right answer,
Yeah.
as you know.
I think there are many ways to think about it. And every client I work with, I give different advice to based on where they're at. So I do think it's helpful to have focus, but there are so many ways to focus and to like the angle of how we're going to focus. Is it on value alignment and attracting this group of people who are on the same movement and mission as you? Is it a specific industry? And PS, 9 out of 10 times it's not, which in your case it is, right? Like that's you and you've done a beautiful job. But a lot of people, that's not necessarily, it depends, right? So I think there's value in focus. There's so much value in focus. That would be my short, concise answer.
Okay, fantastic. Let me say it again. If you are focusing on everything, you are focusing on nothing. And if you are trying to talk to everyone, you are talking to no one in your content. I have a whole episode dedicated to niching down where I really step on my soapbox in a helpful way to help you realize why I will die on this hill. But anyway, what advice would you give to someone who is, oh my gosh, I just feel like I could create a bunch of content or talk about all of these different topics and things, but it feels stifling to put one label on myself in one direction.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say, okay, great. And what filter can we add to this? Is it something about how you work? Let's look at you as the business owner. When I look at a brand, I think it's like typically 3 things. It's you and your vision and your strengths and your passion and your gifts. And then it's the target market you're working with and who they are. And then it's the actual service you provide, which needs to hit at that overlap, the brand heart of between you and your target market. And so looking at you as a business owner, is there an approach you take? It's a unique approach. Or looking at your target market, are there common themes? What filter are we going to put on to give us more focus? Because whenever you just mentioned like the multi-passionate, my question that I think is really good to sit with is at what cost are you a multi-passionate entrepreneur?
Whoa.
Like, what is the cost of that? Because for me, that's been my life, that's been my story, but it created so much fragmented focusing here and there and this service, and you can't systematize that. You can't scale that.
No, you cannot. That's so good, Alicia. Okay, thank you so much. Wow. Go ahead and hit that rewind button because that was incredibly valuable. Like, imagine if you're reading a book by an author, and let's say it took them like a decade to publish this book, and you start reading about one topic, and then in the middle of the book, you're like literally talking about something else. And then later on, a few chapters later, we're talking about something else. Like, imagine if an author was having like fragmented focus while they're trying to create this piece of art, this piece of content. I bet it wouldn't sell. I bet nobody would leave that a review. So what can we learn from that for our content? Okay, Alicia is now going to spill the beans on this AI formula for your content. Buckle up.
What I use is like start with your service lists out the features of that service, whether it's the process, the timeline, or a feature of it, and then pastes in this prompt to ChatGPT to spit out the benefit. Because we focus on ourselves as business owners, let's shift to the benefit. And so you can list, that's like the selling sound bites that I have are feature, benefit, and then even tying in a sensational goal, like a felt goal, like sensatory. Anyway, I digress.
No, that's so good. That makes me think of something. Well, we know what does well on social media is other humans. And I feel like it's such a fine line that is so incredibly blurry of like how much do I talk about myself and what I do versus help other people. How do you feel like, especially considering a brand? So let's pretend everyone who listens to this has a really great brand. This is obviously not true, but yeah, let's be delusional and say that. Okay, when should they talk about themselves versus how much should they talk about actually providing information to help other people?
There's a way to do both in nearly all of your content. I think you can always lead with passion, lead with your like what makes you excited, because that's magnetic and people can tell. So if you like writing, if you're involved in your content creation, allow it to feel selfish and self-centered, and learn how to infuse little points that your client and consumer can relate with. So maybe your story is about having a hard day. Okay, what about that story is going to land with your clients? And so there's a way to start with something personal or something that makes sense to write about within your brand, and then to tie in the consumer benefit or the consumer aspect. But I would say that there needs to be like maybe a 70-30 split if I had to give a percentage. Like 70% could be the more personal lifestyle, maybe it's some education, but it's more content that you want to write about, and then having that content spin to include the benefit to the consumer. But then 30% where it is strictly let's talk and relate to your target market.
Yeah, I totally think there's a way to do both. And I find that the people I love seeing on the internet are people who I feel like I know a lot about them. I think it's called like a parasocial relationship or something. It's like one-sided, like they have no idea I exist, but I'm like, oh my God, I'm obsessed with them.
I
They
like
like,
that there's a name for that.
yeah, I think it's parasocial. Hi, editing Laura here. So according to Dr. Google, parasocial relationships are one-sided relationships where one person extends emotional energy, interest, and time, and the other party, the persona, is completely unaware of the other person's existence. Basically, the people that I see who don't know I exist, but I'm like, wow, I love them. I feel like I know so much about them, but it's like, oh, cool. I also know she's also in my head of like, she's a person I would go to if I needed help with this thing. I feel like I know what her freaking backyard looks like, but I also know like what her sales page looks like too, which is so hard to do to balance both. But I think you're so right that you have to find a way to do it together, which I think can be incredibly hard for people who don't get it, or they're just like, I know that I can blow up on the internet somehow, or like they know because other people have done it, but they like don't understand how to be a good marketer or like a good writer.
It comes back to storytelling, right? Like storytelling is what our brains are wired for stories. I think you talked about this on the podcast before. And it's really mastering the art of storytelling where you can talk about yourself and write stories that are relatable. And then it's going to connect with your people. And you can also infuse it to be more about them too, like to do both. But that requires knowing some parts of storytelling and deeply knowing your audience. Like I think it all comes back to the root of your knowing your people.
How would you, this is also an episode I want to do. This is so great. Just getting to the brains of it. People, oh my God, I see so many people who are like, I just inspire people to travel. And I'm like, great. But who are those people? Like, how do people figure out who they want to talk to? And I mentioned to somebody else that most of the time, the people that we are talking to, a lot of them are ourselves because it's like the content we're creating is content we like to consume. And who, yeah, we are our own audience we're creating content for. But what would you say to someone if they came to you and they're like, I don't know how to find out specifically who I should be trying to talk to? Here is my goal, or here is my service or what I'm selling. How do I figure out who wants to buy it?
Ooh, what a great question. My brain goes two different directions. One is to just get out in the marketplace. I think a lot of times we spin our wheels and spend our times in our heads with that question without being in real conversations and without being in front of real people. And the easiest shortcut to do that is to start putting out beta offers at a price that is like a no-brainer price and to an audience somewhere you're in front of, whether that's sending out an email to your network, posting on social media, getting into Facebook groups, get out into the world and put out offers. You're going to see what sticks and what doesn't stick.
Totally.
And once you see what sticks, then go and find that person, talk to them, ask them questions, and get to know what's under the iceberg, what's under their pain points to really get to the root of their pain point and or their desires. Because what they say it is often requires digging a little deeper to what it actually is.
Okay, so my approach to market research was I already knew who I wanted to work with, and I went out to that target audience and asked them what problems they were facing so I could create solutions for those problems. Now, you might feel exactly the opposite, meaning you know what problem you want to solve. You just are looking for specifically, incredibly specifically, who you want to solve it for. And it all just comes back to asking really good questions. Now, Alicia's going to share with us what the fuck pizza soup is. It's so worth it.
Okay, so the pizza soup story. We have two kids. We are switching schools. And so this spring, we went and toured a Montessori school here in Columbia, Missouri. And I started talking to the director, and the director also happens to be an amazing chef. And what's really important to the school is connecting the kids to the food. And we got to talking about food because we both I love food. I could talk all day. I love to eat. Anyway, she started talking to me about this soup that she makes. I don't know how we even started talking about this, but she started talking about this soup that's filled with veggies, filled with tomatoes, all from the garden they grow. It's filled with herbs. They sprinkle cheese on it, and she serves it with some sourdough. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, it's a vegetable soup. This is sounds yummy. Where is the story going? And she's like, but I know my kids. I know the kids that go here. I know what they want. This is pizza soup. And so she took this vegetable soup and she's like, and the kids love it because they love pizza. And
It's amazing.
in my head, I'm like, you are a brand strategist, Gabby. Like, this is beautiful. You just framed this pizza soup to your audience. Like, you know your audience, you know your kids. They don't care that it's packed with these nourishing vegetables. They don't care about any of that. They care about pizza. So, anyway, I just think that's like a beautiful story to show the power of framing and how often in our heads do we get stuck in the vegetables of our offers. We're like, you need this. Look at these veggies. And your audience is over here like, can you just give us freaking pizza?
Just show me the end. Show me the end result of what I can get from it. Totally.
Yeah.
I think, yes. Okay. Describe to me this little Mario cartoon explanation of this analogy. Yes, I am asking you to describe a visual experience auditorially, so good luck.
Okay. I'm so glad you brought this up because I saw this picture. Someone in town showed me this and I was like, no, my mind was blown. I was like, this is my work. This is what I do. This is branding. So there's this picture, there's this meme, and we'll have to share it. But so it's a picture of Mario. I'm a 90s baby. I freaking love and obsessed with Mario. And there's this picture of Mario. And then there's this picture of the mushroom, right? And then at the end, there's this picture of Mario transformed by the mushroom. So often in our business, we are focused on selling the freaking mushroom. Again, the vegetable. But what the audience wants is what that mushroom can make them do. It transforms Mario into a fireball throwing machine, an ice ball throwing machine. That's what the audience wants. Your people want the transformation and they want to see themselves in that transformation. Can I do that? Can I see myself in that transformation? So we simply need to shift from selling the mushroom to selling the transformation.
In your content or in your freebie or in your offer, you need to make it incredibly clear to your target traveler, target audience, the transformation, the emotions, what they will feel when they get that thing from you. They don't really care about the middle part, okay? They don't really care about the in between how, what they feel now and how they'll feel at the end. They just want to know how what you're able to give them is going to feel after you've given it to them. That's all people care about. And one of the ways you can make people care is by storytelling.
Yes, precisely. This comes back to your previous question. Tell stories about the transformation. And it can be your transformation, it can be your client's transformation, it can be a connection, it can be a story about your weekends and how you felt peace. And maybe feeling peace is the transformation you provide. You can exploit this idea to make it about you and make it about your people.
Yeah, honestly, if you're not telling stories, I think it's just so much harder to do anything. Because, like we know, stories have been around literally forever, they will never die. Everybody loves a story. And if you can't communicate something that you want someone to give you money for in an entertaining and storyish way, then it's not going to happen. It's so fascinating because it's so simple. Like it's something that's been around forever, and theoretically it's so simple, but sometimes I think for people it can be so hard to take their experience or like their offer and transform it into this analogy that relates to their target audience because it requires so many things. You have to be good at writing. You have to know who you're talking to. You have to like not have such a horrible personality. It just requires all these factors that a lot of people don't have all the things. And you can get somebody else to help you do the things. But if you suck, if you just nobody wants to talk to you or like work with you, then somebody helping you can only get you that far. Like you have to be a little interesting for sure.
And that's where it's like just most people who suck probably just haven't embraced their quirkiness. You don't suck,
Yeah.
be you, which I could go on a tangent about that, but I'll hold back.
No, you can because I talk about it a lot. I talk a lot about how consistently across any platform of social media, whatever you're sharing, the content that has done well always will do well, no matter what type of niche you're in. This is another hill I'll die on. Is content that talks about you and or is just about the human experience. Because again, when we have like these parasocial relationships, you're like, there's no way this person I follow actually takes showers. No, they just exist. They just exist and then they show up again on my feed. But then you feel like you get to know them when they actually talk about their whatever routine. It's just crazy. Just crazy. People can tell so hard if you're trying to be something that you're not.
Yeah. Where my tangent with being yourself is I think I heard that in high school. I don't know how often. I don't know if that was like in early 2000s, but did you hear that? It was like all over. Be yourself. Be your self. Don't be afraid
Mm-hmm.
of yourself. And as
Mm-hmm.
a hyper, who knew it, ADHD, super afraid of rejection, I have never known how to be myself safely. And so I think it's actually a true art and growth and emotional intelligence to actually be yourself because there are layers of the onion on most females in this world where it's like, it doesn't feel safe until it
Yeah,
starts to feel safe. And then
that's
it starts to feel fun. And you get in your 30s or 40s and you're like, heck yeah, this is amazing. I'm finally myself.
that is wild. And it's like, how do you feel like that has changed your business? Because the person you are when you started, this is applies to anyone, but the person you are when you started is not going to be the person that you were when you were years later. We're like, okay, you've been doing it for a while. You just have so much different perspective now. But how do you feel like you embracing yourself has changed how you can show up for your clients?
Wow, that's a big question.
Okay, you don't have to answer it. It's
No,
okay.
no, I would love to. Yeah, I would say so in my 20s, I had panic attack disorder and general anxiety disorder. And starting a business in my late 20s, I was on the tail end of healing and coming to a place of like, okay, I think my executive functioning is turning on. I think I'm a capable adult who can go through a day. Anyway, my journey has been surrounded by mental health and healing myself. So starting out, I shape shifted to every client that I worked with. And I think this is often the freelancer model and not necessarily, I'm not saying you have to have the layer of mental health labels and conditions that I have.
Well, it helps to be delusional to do these kinds of things.
It does. And truly, I had to be delusional to get into this, to start my own business. But I've shape shifted and I had no boundaries and my pricing was low. And now, like 7, 8 years later, I IDGAF. I am myself. I have boundaries. I don't take things personally. And well, let me give the caveat. If I do take things personally, I know to pause and to do my own work, to tap, to do my emotional healing, like to have support. Because if a client is upset at a boundary, if a client's pissed off because of X, Y, and Z, it's not about me. It's not. It's about I have clear communication. I have clear expectations with every client I work with. I have boundaries. I hold space for so much discomfort with the clients I work with. And it's because I'm safe with myself and I'm learning to be safe with myself.
That's so good. What would you say to someone who is at the beginning of turning their content into a business? They're like, okay, I did the leap thing. I'm here. I just started a business. It's terrifying. What do I like? What would you say to yourself going back in time when you experienced that?
Yeah, to someone who started recently and who's doing it, I would say a couple things. I think 3 things. Number one, self-trust is the number one thing to focus on. Watch and be aware of the stories that are looping in your brain. Pause.
Whoa.
When those are happening, pause and ask yourself, is this expansive? Is this empowering me forward? Or is this disempowering? And I would add there, as someone who's getting tapping certified, to work through those things somatically. Like things are held and stored in our body, hardwired in our brain. Work with someone somatically to release those blocks and to build the daily self trust. That would be number one. Number two is don't be afraid to invest in yourself.
Yeah, that's so good.
I felt selfish. I felt like I'm too much for this. I don't deserve this. I'm not worthy. But the biggest investments I've made, I have transformed almost overnight with every investment that has been about into me or my business. It has always paid off.
Mm-hmm. Holy cow.
And number three, don't be afraid to slow down. For instance, there are times where you have big slowdowns. Like I took quarter 1 super slow. And I think it's really important to build slow into your everyday because if it's one thing to take big breaks, it's another thing to titrate and to find safety in going slow. In my morning routine, on Mondays, I go slow. I don't book meetings. And so finding ways to slow down and ask yourself, what do you want? Finding safety going slow and stepping into desire is going to overflow and make your business fun and make running it fun.
Mm-hmm. If you are in the process of transforming your current content into this business, go rewind and write down those 3 things Alicia just mentioned. Use that as a framework to kickstart this business or grow your current business. And you're going to be a pretty well set up travel creator. Do you have any advice on sticking to your boundaries, especially if you're like a people pleaser or if you're like, I know that this isn't great for me, but I'm going to do it anyway because I people please?
Yeah, that's a great question because that's where I started this work. It didn't feel safe to slow down. And let me be fully transparent. This is my own medicine. This is work I still need to work on because my brain likes to be hyper vigilant. And that's for most of my life, all it's known. But what happens when I don't take the daily pauses and the daily stuff, I don't slow down on vacation. It doesn't feel good. it takes me like days to actually get into a slower mindset. And so for me, it's starting really slow. It's not, I would say even 2 years ago, I would have this checklist. Here's what going slow looks like today. I need to meditate for an hour. I need to go on a 30-minute walk. I need to do this and blah, blah, blah. That is way too much to start to dive into the work of going slow. And so for me, it's been titrating. And it's like I get up, I go in the sauna for 15 minutes, or I do a guided meditation for 5 minutes. It's sometimes it's a breath. It's like taking a couple of breaths after a meeting, or doing tapping is a great energetic reset. If you can YouTube it and find if you're not familiar with it. And the other thing I mentioned earlier, which is following your desire, like asking yourself, your inner child, what would feel good today? And doing it, like just freaking do it. My coach, my mindset coach I worked with for over a year, had me do this. And at first, it was so uncomfortable. I'm like, why am I doing this? But what it does is it allows going slow to feel good. Sometimes I'm laying on the couch taking a break and it doesn't feel good because I haven't given my mind permission to let it feel good.
The guilt I feel of doing nothing is insane. And then it's like, oh, people think that I don't do anything. So it's like I travel to all these million places. And it's like, what you don't see is sleeping maybe a few hours and like doing all, yeah, that is crazy. The guilt, productivity guilt is what it's called. I
Yeah.
read a book on it. It was crazy. Wow. Holy cow. I can't wait to listen to this again.
I know. Yeah. Same. I'm still working through it. I still have to check myself. Like, am I actually enjoying this horizontal couch reset, or is my mind still fixated on work stuff? Yeah, it's same. This is my own medicine, but it is so good.
It can be so hard as a travel creator to feel like you can rest because there are unrealistic expectations set on people who travel the world and post about it on the internet. I mean, is it really okay to travel for 30 hours and then be expected to have an exceptional piece of content posted from that trip you're just on? Um, no, it's kind of effed up actually. So my hot take is to challenge the norms of content creation because I believe you can still create an incredibly thriving travel creator business without going the broy route of completely burning yourself out and just working until you basically don't sleep. Yeah, and it's hard to get your brain to be like, all right, you need to rest. You need to rest. It's fine. Rest is not a reward, it's a requirement. I love that you were saying, what would your inner child want to do? That is so funny to me because immediately I was like, I'm going to go run outside. I'm just going to run in this field. But it's just a good reminder of like, we can get so caught up in like, oh my God, can we get this thing out today? Did you hit publish on this post? Why didn't it go out? Oh my God, there was a thing in this thing. And it's like, we work in marketing. It's okay. It's not that deep. It's fine. We don't have to take it too seriously. It's so easy to get so caught up in all of this immediacy that everything is, that it's actually, you don't have to take it so seriously. That's why I love telling people, figure out your brand, go talk to Alicia, dear God, and make some evergreen pieces of content and get out of town. It's not that deep. That's it.
That's it. And I think that hits such a great point about the urgency we live in our culture, and how everything feels freaking urgent. We've lost any sense of patience with this instant gratification. And so, of course, our brains are going to feel uncomfortable with slowing the fuck down. And that's the work. I've had to reframe and rethink how I think about deadlines and working with clients, and that relationship to my inbox and to clients' requests. And that's where it comes back to being okay with discomfort. Like you stepping into slowness is leading the way in our world. It's going to project out, and your clients might be uncomfortable with it, or your people you work with. But man, what a beautiful permission slip you're going to give yourself and everyone around you.
So true. What always feels empowering to me is reminding myself that I'm in charge. And again, I think it's so hard because it's like, who am I to be in charge of literally anything? But it's just funny and it's so empowering to be like,
Who let me be in charge? How am I a grown up? I'm a grown up.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. My niece the other day, she called me. She's like, "You're not a grown up. You're just a big kid." And I was like, "Yes, correct." That was so funny. Okay, I read something in a book that I wasn't going to mention to you, but I think that you would appreciate it. It's in this book that I actually have mentioned on this podcast before. It's called Burnout, and I can leave it in the show notes, but it was written by two sisters, which is fun. And they were mentioning how our brains are not made to keep up with the pace at which we live life today. It's like we can't even be mad at ourselves for having productivity guilt or feeling like it's so immediate because our brains are made to eat, sleep, and that's it. We're just still cavemans up here, and our brains have not developed at the speed of which we work, which is so insane. And that made me feel good too. I was like, yeah, okay, I will get
Yeah.
back to you in a business day. Let me like go see my people.
Let me eat and sleep, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I'll get back to you when I've slept and I'm fed. I'm fed and watered. Okay, any other topics or thoughts that you just feel like I have to say this and I will feel good? And it's okay if you don't.
I love what you said about that quote. And it's wild that we have animal brains and yet we're trying to keep up with this pace. So no wonder there's this normalization of just this high functioning anxiety. And I think the work becomes undoing that and finding a way to heal and to lead a different way. But then to also, like you're saying, give yourself radical compassion because our brains haven't caught up and because we can't, it's not like I can opt out of the culture.
Yes. If you ever started a cult, I would join. Oh,
I joke forever and ever with my husband about having a commune.
it's my dream. It's my dream.
Maybe that's our next business or
Yes.
nonprofit, or let's do it.
I have 5 people on board already. So serious. So serious.
Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah. So funny.
Sign me up.
Okay, where can people find you? Where do you want them to find you?
So they can find me at withjoybrandco.com or on Instagram. Probably follow me there at withjoybrandco. I'm being awkward. I don't know.
No, you should follow Alicia because you will see so many things that will make you feel, just validate your human experience. And it's so good. And I love watching. You're always at the top. You're always at the top. And I always click. I'm like, what does she got for me today? And sometimes I'm like, I need to prepare mentally for what I'm gonna get in a good way. That's so great. Okay, so fun. Thank you for dropping so much knowledge. I feel like there's so many good little nuggets that I'll come back to and share and will really make a difference in people's lives. Holy cow. Holy cow.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor to be here. I'm so excited and just feel so grateful. I feel the same about your content, and you are so good at what you do and are masterful at content. And it's an art. So thank you. It's great.
Wow, you can't say those things to me. It goes right to my head, Alicia. That's so amazing.
I see your head getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah. God, I forgot a hat. Thank you. That's so fun. Thank you guys for tuning in to this week's episode of The Travel Creator. There's just so many good bits of information in this episode. I cannot wait to pull it all out and share it with you in another format. Also, if you're in Chicago right now listening to this, you are my top city in the entire world of listeners. So you're doing God's work out there. Also, if you're from Australia or if you're listening in Australia, you are my top country. What the heck? Let's go. I'm absolutely terrified of everything that exists outside in Australia, but I appreciate your listenership. Okay, happy creating, friends. I'll see you next week.